That's what your name is.
All right, my name is Jen Mumo Daniel. I work at Strathmore Business School under the project of Kenya Small Business Development Centers, and I'm glad to be here to learn more about how we can invest in MSMEs because we know that they contribute largely to the economy of Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Strathmore Business School. Do you mind saying a word?
Okay. Hi, my name is Maslin Obuya. I'm a founder of SME Business Clinic. We work with from startups to MSMEs to medium enterprises. We try to help them to be not only investor ready, we've developed tools that they can be able to use, but in addition to that, we also help them to put system and structures in place so that then they can be able to get to the next level. I'm excited to be here in terms of just listening what is out there, the innovations that are there, but also just for us to have an engagement into how do we take it to the next level. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Probably just taking some few to know one who is in the room. Lurit, I see you calling me. Probably you could just check up one who is in.
Yeah, I have one right here.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Karanja and I am a project manager at Melanin Capital. So I run an investor readiness program called Tuungane, which basically means unite to unlock financial opportunity to SMEs out there. So yeah, I'm great to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to interact more with Tuungane, she is right here in the room and you're able to find her. The ladies' table. Can I randomly pick a person or do you want to volunteer and tell us your name and what you do? Okay. Could you maybe stand up so that he can?
Hello everyone, my name is Lynn Mutwiri. I am the project lead in Capital Connect Africa. This is an online marketplace that connects investors, BASPs and advisors. So you simply log in and you are able to find what you're looking for. So you're making investment easier, and we are the African fundraising marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those interested in online platforms, you know who to speak to. Okay, I think we might need a bit of engagement from the back as well. Hello everyone on this table. We'd like to hear your voices a little bit. So should I select at random or is somebody gonna tell us? You seem like you want to say something.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Munyao, working with the KCB group. I'm excited to be here today. Mine is of course to get learnings from the list for today. And of course, as a financial institution, we're also here to get to see how we can come in and support those who are in business, those who may want to go into business. Personally, I'm in agribusiness as an agribusiness development manager. So we are very passionate about what is happening and about the farmers, the smallholder farmer, because that is the one who forms the foundation. And being the foundation of agribusiness value chain, we are willing to come in and support and offer solutions. Thank you.
All right, great. It's very clear that we're all here to learn, innovate, collaborate, and interact with each other on different things across building Kenya's financial ecosystem. Kevin, I think it's time to move into the next segment. What do you think about that? Are you going to...
1, 2. Yes, definitely. It's about time we just set the ball rolling much more, moving into our next segment. But for any person just joining in, this is a Kima's learning event, and it's all centered on the theme Access and Impact, bearing in mind that the lessons that we've curated alongside the topical areas are centered around access and impact. And bearing in mind also, we're just not just doing a conversation and building dialogue to just end here. We're also just urging you to ensure that you share this particular conversation to the respective social media handles. And if you really want to interact with not only what's happening, but also what's happening online, we're streaming live within the USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism YouTube page, and also within the USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism Facebook page. And the two hashtags that we've developed and curated up for this is hashtag USAID Kim Learning Event and hashtag #2Invest in Kenya. Right about now, it's a time for me to take you up onto the second panel that's coming in on this first day of the Kim Learning event. And it's a panel centered on information technology and how probably different stakeholders are leveraging up on information technology to drive uptake within different segments within the small and medium enterprise. This particular panel is going to be led and moderated by Brenda Kerubo. Brenda Kerubo, as far as I understand and as far as I knew her, she was, until I think last week, working as a news reporter and business anchor at KTN Business. I know she's transitioning. She's here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just rise up, not rise up, but really just encourage her with some hearty claps as she gets on stage. Brenda, the stage is yours. All right, as Brenda sets the stage up, it's upon her to just take lead and invite into us who our three panelists are going to be on that particular segment. So Brenda, the floor is yours. Please take it away and guide us through. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, some energy. All right. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the lovely introduction. I really appreciate. I was here for the morning session, and it was very cold outside. So to begin with, I'd like to describe this session, how it was in the morning, that was moderated by my very good friend Nina, as a coconut, since it was very, very strategic in terms of agriculture sector, which is a mainstay in our economy. So why coconut? Because first, it was very cold outside, but when I came inside, it was fleshy and very tasty. So how many share the same sentiments with me? Or a better fruit, for that matter? Who wants to shout out which fruit they think can describe the morning session for them? A mango, there you go. Who else? Shout it out. Apple, interesting. Why an apple? It was juicy? All right, thank you so much. So for this specific session, we have an A-star panel. We have Julio De Souza, who is the Vice President of Stratlink Advisory Group. Welcome on stage, Julio. Of course, he is a financial advisor, management consultant, and a senior entrepreneur with 14 years of experience across multiple industries. Now, they're selected as an Acumen Fund East Africa Fellow, inaugural class of 2011, and he is also a mentor of entrepreneurs at Unreasonable Institute, Growth Hub, and MLab. Welcome to this session.
Thank you.
All right. And then we also have Stefano Cacofora. Stefano is the CEO of iProcure Limited. Of course, that focuses on he chose to pursue a career in systems engineering and began his career working for a branch of Philips Engineering as a systems engineer and started extensively overseeing large development projects in Cameroon, Haiti, post-earthquake, of course, very interesting. And he holds a bachelor's in engineering, mechanical engineering from Oxford Brookes University. Welcome. All right. And also joining us online is Julian Michel. We call him Mitch.
Mitch, if you could hear me. Mitch is the CEO of Inspira Farms Limited. He is commercially minded business executive who has successfully shaped, led, and developed organizations in fintech, off-grid energy, and the British military in Europe, Central Asia, and East Africa. He holds a Master of Science in Defense Geospatial Information from Cranfield University. Welcome, Mitch. All right, so a round of applause for our panelists. Okay, all right. So agriculture is one of the key contributors to our economy. I mean, most of the people involved in the rural areas, at least 70% of them are either employed directly or indirectly in this sector that contributes at least 27% to the gross domestic product or the total number of goods and services produced in the economy. Now, that said, the sector is, however, not growing to its full potential. There is a lot of headwinds, there's a lot of challenges, especially for farmers when they're trying to sell their produce and at the same time using smart technology in order to increase their produce. Now, to begin with, let me start over with you, Stefano. This is quite informative. What is your company doing in relation to solving the challenges that are affecting SMEs concentrated in the agriculture sector?
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the problems that we're focused on solving are really sort of centered around the agrovet or the agro dealer, right? And introducing some level of data flowing upstream towards input suppliers, right? With the ultimate goal of sort of eliminating instances of agricultural input scarcity and also lowering the price point for smallholder farmers. And the approach that we take is agro-dealer-centered approach, where we work with agro-dealers to sort of enhance their capacity to serve smallholder farmers, right? As you guys know, agro-dealers are embedded in smallholder farming communities and are a key source of not only inputs but also advice and extension services for commercial smallholder farmers. So really that's what we've been working on for the last 8 years or so, 10 years, 9 years, a long time.
Yes, since 2013. Let's go way back to 2013 when you first started this business. What necessitated the introduction of this business, and how did you go about setting up the business within the country?
You know, it's easy for me to look back and say there was a master plan, but there really wasn't. There's some level of opportunism that you have to sort of, if you're honest, you have to sort of factor in. It just seemed like distribution channels, particularly in rural areas, were not operating optimally, right? And there was really no reason for them not to sort of operate efficiently. So the truth is, we were not really focused initially on the agricultural input sector. We were generally interested in optimizing rural distribution, but we found the most acute need to be in agriculture, right? And if you're going to spend 10 years of your life doing something, then it might as well be something that's going to at least have some significant contribution to improving lives. So really that was it. In terms of our current model, again, there was no master plan. It was really just about engaging with the market and bashing our heads against the wall until we found something that worked. And now we have something that really works. And yeah, but I think we'll get into that later on.
Yes, of course, dear Stefano, we will discuss that further. But I just want to rope in Julian, who should be able to give us more insights also in relation to the agriculture sector. How have the challenges within the country and also in Africa, how has it created opportunities for solutions to be provided?
Julian's.
Yes. Julian, can you hear us online? Julian? Yeah, let me take that again. The agriculture sector. Oh, you can. All right. So the agriculture sector has faced quite a number of headwinds, not only within the country but also in the African continent. There's a bit of an echo, but you can still hear me. That's okay. Okay. All right. So these headwinds that have affected farmers and small, medium-sized enterprises. Mitch, kindly mute, and then once I finish asking the question, then you can unmute. All right, so much better. Okay, there's no echo, and we can go about it. All right, so Julian, there have been a lot of headwinds when it comes to the agriculture sector, especially within the country and at the same time also on the continent. What are some of the problems that are being solved by your companies?
Okay, hopefully you can hear me okay. It was a bit tricky to get the question, but I think I got the question in the voice. So the Spirit Farms Cooling Company, it was originally set up 10 years ago by some founders who were, in my opinion, fairly visionary in the fact that they understood that while there was a huge amount of effort to heal, there was less effort and focus on the post-harvest. But the end of the post-harvest was still wrong. And there was also, to small the area we get them for only helping them more so. So really the question that the business posed, how do we reduce the post-harvest loss? We think, in horticulture, any of these projects, some production can be lost through post-harvest loss. During post-harvest. That's terrible. If you think of, imagine if you're losing 30% and suddenly you drop that to 15%, what that means to your bottom line and the profitability and sustainability of the business is gigantic. So really, Spirit Farms is trying to use a combination of cooling, which is very accessible in high-income parts of the world, and rural Europe, like 95% of farms have direct access to cooling, whereas on the continent it's probably less than 5%. So there's a huge gap there, and the access to cooling means you can really change that post-harvest rate. We've demonstrated that multiple times with all sorts of clients and different value chains. The real question now for us as a company is how do we actually go that further to impact food loss across the broader base of agriculture? That's important to us because of the following impacts, which again, most people do important numbers for sure, but just in case on horticulture is a huge sector within Kenya, but something like 5 to 7% is export. There's a lot of value generated from that 5 to 7% for the country's GDP, but ultimately the rest of that is kind of more linked to the domestic market. And that's where you have huge losses, and that's where when we move from things such as food security, economic sustainability, and then impact on climate, that's where I think cooling has a huge role to play. I can talk a bit more about those things later on in the discussion.
All right, and just to kindly mute. Okay, and just to add on that, clearly technology is becoming a critical role when you're talking about that cooling infrastructure. How do you go about introducing that in rural areas, and also the financial aspect related to that? How do you make it feasible on the ground?
Yeah, very good question. I think this is a couple of things. First off, something about you may notice that cooling is not straightforward. You have to put a box, make it cold, and then put it. And everyone can relate to that. When you put a hot dinner inside your fridge, it will mess up the other things in your fridge, right? It will heat up, it will cause problems, it will throw electric. It's complex. So the first thing is to understand what it is you really want to do. That's the first thing to understand. What is it? What produces it? Achieve at what point? What temperature it is, what temperature I'm going to get it to. Because ultimately we're building infrastructure to form part of the cold chain, and if you want to be a cold chain, you've got to make sure all the bits kind of line up in place. But doing those things successfully, I should have said this at the the company. We try, as a company, we try to achieve four things. The first thing is minimize losses, food losses. That's where you get a huge appetite and you really get some ROI. Second is we try to increase shelf life, and that also helps with locking in the consistency of the products. Thirdly, we try to make sure we reduce your costs, because ultimately you're running a business and you want to try and reduce your costs. And importantly, we give you access to the data to understand. So how do we make it work on the ground? Well, the answer to that is a combination of first understanding what the real problem is, and making sure you have a solution that's, make sure you design a solution that is suitable for that. So there's no point in giving you a Rolls Royce if you need a Volvo. It just doesn't make sense to make it look beautiful. So getting the product right for the customer, what the customer's ambitions are, is the main part of doing it. I can talk a little bit about finances later on as well, if that's helpful. But ultimately, we are talking about significant investments, and finance has to play a part in this. Some of the technology behind these systems need to, you've just got to invest in finance. To get to scale, you need to use finance to get those. Sorry, thanks very much.
All right, and we'll talk about financing like you're saying there. Stefan, I want to come back to you. And like you talked about briefly about 2013 when you're setting up the business to actually growing the solution, but it wasn't all that neat. I mean, like you said, all this requires money, and also it requires advisory services. How did you go about it, and at what point did you incorporate the Kenya investment mechanism?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of moving parts, and to be honest, a lot of goodwill. So I'm born and raised in Kenya, and the investment climate when I was lucky enough to go and study was nowhere near where it is today. And while I was working in Haiti, I took some time off, and I came back home, and my brother just started a company and managed to raise investment for it. And so it was a completely different landscape. And all of a sudden, impossible dreams started to sort of materialize. Now, when I say there's a lot of goodwill, I mean, there was an ecosystem that was developing at that point. You had Village Capital, Growth Africa. Actually, funny enough, I just met Caroline here today, and she actually helped us draft our first financial policies for the business, I think back in 2014. Thank you for that. And that again was sponsored not by Kim, but still that was something that was facilitated by USAID. And those things, participating in those programs, is really what got us investment ready, right? So every stage of investment requires a different level of readiness. Our first equity investment was $250,000 from a US-based VC operating out of Boston, and the level of readiness for $250,000 is nowhere near what you need when you're raising, $15-20 million. And so every stage of the company's life, and you have to be acutely aware of what you need and who you need to surround yourself with as a business. And so I'll give you a walkthrough. I think in 2014, when we closed the $250,000, it was just me and the three other co-founders, right? And we had decent records. Thanks in large part to Caroline, we had decent financial systems for a business at that scale. And so, it's sort of, people start looking at you differently, particularly funds. Say, okay, these people, they have their ducks in a row. They look a lot more investment ready than, a lot of the other businesses out there that may have an amazing product but no systems to support the rollout of that product. So it really depends where you get. So up until about $1 million in equity, which was in 2017, we were able to do that in-house, right? Obviously, with a lot of goodwill from the likes of Village Capital, USAID, which is the Kenya Food, KFIE, I forget what it's called. so we had a bit of support from them, but then once you got to $4, $5, $10 million, it's a different league, right? You start looking at developing an investment memorandum, something I never heard of until maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. DEX. You start looking through a list of suitable investors. There's a strategy, there's an approach on how to go about it. It's not just sort of, you kind of have to look at what the theme that this investor is interested in and sort of not necessarily tailor your story to that, but ensuring you're not barking up the wrong tree and wasting time. So programs like Kim, I see them as, the way I see it is, in many ways, I think I Procure we can be sort of viewed in the same light. Programs like Kim are it's like setting up a power station, right? That pumps in maybe 100 megawatts into the grid. You don't feel it, right? But it does lower the overall cost of energy, right? And it has a huge impact on cost of production, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of see them as sort of like the ghost in the machine, if you will. I don't know if you guys are sort of anime, if you watch any anime, but the ghost in the machine. You don't really see the effects firsthand, but you do end up feeling them, right? And here we are, all these years later, still with a lot to prove, but having raised substantial amounts of investment that can fuel growth. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So before we delve a little bit deeper into that, and of course that's where I'm going to rope in Julio. Kevin, I don't know where you are. We have a set of questions.
I think maybe we can come in. I don't know where Kevin is.
Oh yes, Laurette.
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, do you have any questions to the panel handling digital information technology affairs? Is there any question from the room? None? Okay. Is there one? Where? All right, then I think I'll ask a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah? All right. Gentlemen in the panel, I think one of the critical questions I'd like to ask is with regard to managing competition in the market. Yeah. If we look at small and medium enterprises, at times the competition power is quite low, and by the time already advanced companies are taking over the market, they have a very limited playing field to catch up with the rest of the industries. So how do you manage that and ensure that they're properly included in the financial ecosystem? I don't know which of you will take that, but I hope it's clear.
Julio should take it up because he deals a lot with advising these specific firms on what to do and also accessing financing. Perhaps you can touch on that question to begin with, and at the same time, how do you make a good pitch?
Good one. Well, first on competition, I think that this is, fortunately, the agriculture space is not a zero-sum game in terms of the competitive landscape. I mean, this is a market, this is a sector that contributes to over 30% of GDP in Kenya and will be very similar across Africa. So it's a sector that also can grow, right? So it's not a sector that, you're going to have to divide the pie into a number of competitors and there's no scope or opportunity for the pie to grow. I think that the agricultural sector in Kenya can be a lot more productive. I think moving the needle from smallholder farmers to more, subsistence smallholder farmers to productive farmers and the opportunities for export, I think that this pie can grow a lot. So in the agricultural sector, I think competition is more welcome, even from the companies themselves. I mean, on our case, we work with several agricultural companies, sometimes in the same market, right? I mean, they are not maybe direct competitors, but they are in the same space. And we never had a problem from the client's perspective and from our perspective to work with companies in the same sort of sector. We feel like competition is healthy and necessary for the market to mature and grow. On the question about what is a good pitch, A good pitch, I think, is something that you have to understand your audience, right? I mean, what Steph was saying, that when you're raising $250,000 and you're talking to a VC from the US, you need to understand their perspective, right? I mean, what are they interested in? Is an impact investor? Is a tech investor? Is if you go up the ladder and you're looking at a private equity fund that is looking to invest $10 million, for instance, a pitch deck doesn't work. They will be expecting an IM, which is something a lot more comprehensive and boring, if you will. So you really need to understand your audience, right? You cannot show an agricultural deck to a tech VC, right? Because the ag tech space, if we go back to the topic of the panel, agricultural and technology, this combination is quite new. Steph and I had, I would say over the years, over 200 investor calls. A lot of them would say, but is this company ag or is it tech? They wanted to put you in a box. And you talk to a tech investor and they say, well, there's too much agriculture. And then you talk to an agriculture investor, but there's too much tech. So the ag tech in particular is such sort of a new, sector, if you will, that creates a little bit of confusion for you to do a good pitch. So to make a long story short, a good pitch is one that, is delivered to the right audience. It has to be engaging, it has to be short, don't forget that. It has to be well put together with a layout and it has to be something that people, spend time looking at it. We're using now a really good tool, and we're not sponsored by it by any means, but we're using now DocuSend, which has really changed the game of how we put pitches out. This tool is one that you can actually upload this, you can send a deck to an investor, and you can actually see how many seconds or minutes they spend in each slide, which for me was a really learning experience, because we put a deck together and you think that this is the strongest slide, or that is the weakest slide, and now you can actually track how much time people are spending in each slide, which is really important when you're putting a deck together. So now there's some tools that can help you how to put a very good pitch, but focus on the audience. That will be the short answer to it.
Of course, and thank you to technology. Not too much technology. Julian, I would like to rope you back into this. Talk to us about the pitch that you had when you were setting up the company. And what did you include that when the investor spoke to you sort of stood out when you were making that pitch? And what are some of the lessons that you can tell people who are now at the developing stages and they're looking at getting investors into their business?
Yeah, sure. So just to be very clear, I think I have been to this investment grant. I also wanted to take opportunity to say the work, Chris wants some work through the Primary. That was hugely helpful, and I actually think the team at Prosperity did a fantastic job, and I still speak to them. Mo in particular has just been was fantastic. But I actually want to build on what's just been said there. There's a couple of things for me. First one is, I consider the investment landscape is you have to speak a different language. And the language you give to a customer, and this is kind of the conversation, in a way which is know your audience. So to me, that was learning that language to be clear. I feel like very clear. I think you just run the sentence together in terms of language. I don't feel like I'm getting a full paragraph. I'm definitely not writing an essay yet. But if it is an analogy, which is kind of why you need experts like your Golden Sage to help you guide you through this process when you're trying to raise the bigger money. The other thing, tech is really, really important to our pitch and how we run. But you also need to tell a story of how you are going to make your business work and what is that part of the profitability and why, what are the assumptions, what do you do? And ultimately you need to demonstrate that there really is genuine business behind it. Because just doing good, ultimately, there's many impact investors that want to demonstrate that, they also want to demonstrate return. And showing the work, show your work And that's both the internal companies over in the Southwest, but also the external audience. I find that's been a huge part of trying to have more serious and very good conversations with investors and discover whether or not it's going to be a fit. And even really focused on to, again, reiterate the concept of kind of already know who is it you want to invest in. It's very hard chasing the money. We also want to think people who are going to be valuable and work with our current investors. I speak to them regularly on many topics, not just on kind of performance of the company. And that bringing that additionality has been really important to me over the last few years. In Toronto. But yeah, so I just want to reiterate, this is about increasing the buy-in and making people more successful. Making our customers more successful, demonstrating that. I think it's about the fundamentals of business and do that. You've got to be able to show off profitability. And you may not get all the times, but you really got to be able to demonstrate something real and back up those sessions with reality. And then the last thing is learn the language. And I think we need to get someone who can speak the language, such as you guys, which can try and put some else on stage.
All right. Thank you so much. And just to, before we finish up with that, Julian, I would like you to also add on the fact that where do you find these investors? Is it that now you have your pitch ready, you know your audience? How do you access them? Do you Google random search? Do you network? How do you find them? Or sometimes they find you?
Yeah, already they got people. I actually think the first thing is it's all networks, right? Everything is networks. So the first one is using your existing network to ask and put the word out there from that one. There are databases and tools out there. There's various databases and tools. There's I've come across multiple databases with different investors across time. They kind of seem to range about 300 to 400 mark people. And then there will be also people online as well. So you then kind of like, who is that everyone from? These guys are being taken out. That's just not something that's going to be relevant to me. So the more you understand what they're asking, the more you can target who they're going to speak to. And that's so we've done a fair amount of that. I've also done a fair amount of approaching people who said no in the past. That's for two reasons. One, maybe that's a yes time, probably not, they might. And two, to just get continued feedback, because if they said no to us in the past, it also gives you a bit of an understanding why they said no, how I address some of those things, or are those things relevant, what's relevant, and how I address them. And I will probably want that's really hard and one of the big parts of the pitch that we've built.
All right, thank you so much, Julian. And Stefano, let's talk about the first conversation you had with USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism. What was it and what were they looking for?
To be honest, I don't really remember the specifics, but it was something along the lines of facilitating us. In fact, maybe to go back to what Julian was saying on how to go about raising funds. Based on my experience, and I don't think I speak for everybody here, but what I found has worked for me and the company really well is division of labor, if you will, right? So one of the wonderful things about what Kim has been able to do, and Stratlink as well, who are our sort of business advisory partners, is that they've helped the management of the company focus all their efforts on ensuring that the story that the advisory firm is selling to the investors is actually true, right? So effectively, what that does is it frees us up to focus on making sure we can focus on business fundamentals. We can ensure that we're on track to achieving our forecasted revenues. And that we're coming good on our promise to the investor or the prospective investor, right? So I find that if you can, as a business, afford to work with one of these advisory firms, I would highly recommend it, because it it really does free you up to focus on what you should be focusing on as the people running the business, right? Which is running the business. So really, discussions with Kim have really centered around how they can add additional value, right? What are the smallest levers we can move to really maximize impact on what we're doing? We currently have an ongoing conversation with Kim on how we can leverage some of the tech we've already built and the distribution network that we have to shield farmers from price shocks. For instance, in fertilizer prices have been going crazy. So how we can leverage that technology and the distribution network that we've built to at least shield them to some extent against those price shocks. Those are the conversations. That's the last conversation we had with Kim, and that's the one that's most fresh in my mind. But the first one was years ago. I'm sorry, I'd be making things up if I told you. I could remember.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions? We have any questions from the audience? Okay, right there. Laurette, Kevin's.
Okay. Perhaps just based on digital engagement, I can see one right there. I'll be coming to it just now. With regard to digital engagement, a specific question coming from Isiolo that's asking, what role can the government play in ensuring that rural communities are also able to take up such innovative solutions and participate in the process and perhaps connect entirely? I don't know, maybe you can answer that as I move to that side and select the next participant who may have a question.
Julio, better place to answer.
I mean, I-Procure, I think, is a case in point of how rural communities and sort of inclusion in the digital transformation process. Because of the nature of how cities are and peri-urban areas, I think all sort of tech innovation have focused in these areas. I-Procure, I think, is a statement of a company that have developed a tech platform that is fit for purpose for rural areas and all the technical aspects of it. I think that the question, I think, is one that, how companies can see the sort of the rural areas as a viable, market for innovation. Because private sector development, as we all know, is led by the sort of economic incentive, right, of these opportunities, and that's how it works. We do believe there's a lot of value in rural areas, as a market in different sectors. It's more, I think, about companies understanding how to serve this specific market and how to include them in this innovation process. I think all Kenyans would appreciate that M-Pesa is everywhere in the country now, right? Safaricom coverage, and it wasn't like that in the beginning. I think it's because there is a movement of understanding how to monetize the rural market, if you will, and see how innovation can trickle down to that specific sort of area.
But still, digital inclusion is still a major challenge in rural areas.
Without a doubt, right? I think we all understand that the price of data for people living in rural communities is, prohibitive, even though the access is there. Cost-wise, I think, is still an issue. I'm not going to mention electricity because I think most people here will be familiar that it's still in rural areas, electrification is an issue. But I think the government has done great strides in the rural electrification program and also private companies. But I think that there are lots of challenges, right, to make a very large area of the country that has basic infrastructure to be included in this digital transformation process. But I think Kenya is a success story by all accounts on how this is possible.
All right, Laurette.
My name is Felicita from SoftLink. My question is mainly to I-Procure. How did you identify the gap in the agricultural value chain and then produce a product that responds to that gap? And I ask this because I know a lot of tech companies develop products that are never able to go to market. and you find that the market is in need of products that are not available. So what was your process? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe it's worth mentioning, or rather highlighting what specifically we do, right? So iProcure is an agricultural distribution company and an ag tech company, right? So we really have two things that we do. We build technology, so software, and we also build the hard infrastructure to ensure goods get to where they go, right? So let's talk about the technology. I mentioned earlier that our tech focuses and is centered around the agro-dealer. So a lot of these agro-dealers need software to run their business. So we've built a mobile-based ERP that does everything at the store level. Inventory now takes 1 hour. You don't have to shut down your shop for a day. So all the agro-dealers using our tech, and there are thousands of them now, they don't have to shut their store for a day to do a stock take. They are able to process sales. They're able to accept various forms of payment. They're able to use an inbuilt CRM system to track credit sales to farmers. And I have contrarian views on credit being issued to farmers, but we can talk about that later. And it effectively helps them to really take control of their operation. In fact, there are several instances of agro-dealers that have scaled from 1 store to 7 stores all over the country because of the controls that this software affords them. Now, just to add to that, this software is free, right? Obviously, there's a hardware cost. It has to be hosted on a hardware, a tablet, or a dedicated piece of hardware, a mobile phone. So there's a cost element there, but the actual software is free. We develop it, and we train them, and we move them from paper-based systems to digital systems for free. Now that's enormous value for the agro-dealer. What we get, because it's sort of a knife that cuts both ways, right? What does iProcure get? iProcure gets access to data. We're able to see inventory levels, sales. We're able to know, we're able to interrogate our system now and tell you what levels of DAP we have in a given county, right? To a fairly accurate, to a fair degree of accuracy. And that data informs what we stock in our distribution centers. So now comes the other side about what we do. The physical infrastructure we build. It's one thing to build an application that tells a farmer tomatoes cost, I don't know, 60 shillings a kilo. It's another to actually move those tomatoes from point A to point B so they can get sold, and then effecting the payment and completing the transaction. So that infrastructure doesn't exist. So to answer your question, why do most applications fail? There's we're talking about moving bits. No one's talking about moving atoms, right? So you need to move the sack of fertilizer. The 50-kilogram sack of fertilizer has to be loaded onto a truck. There have to be loaders. There has to be a warehouse manager. There has to be a receipting system for that warehouse. And then when it gets to the point where the customer is, they have to then process the transaction there, collect the money through some means. So it's not as simple as we'd like to think. And a lot of the businesses we tend to emulate here are in developed economies, while ours is still developing, right? So you need to take a very realistic look at where we are and what is needed. So we ended up building both. We built the technology, and we're also building the infrastructure. So we have I think now we have 14 distribution centers across the country that facilitate next day delivery. You order before 3 p.m. today, before 1 p.m. tomorrow, you get 94% of your orders of what you ordered at the shop. And that's no easy feat. I mean, you're talking about vast distances in rural areas. Some roads are impassable during certain times of the year, particularly during the short and long rains. So it's not easy to sort of maintain that. So this is why I think most applications, most technology systems don't really have long legs, because it's not just about building a nifty tool. This is not fintech. It's effectively logistics. So at the end of the day, you still have to have parallel systems that mirror the digital systems that make sure the products get to where they're supposed to go. That's really what, my humble opinion, that's what I think is sort of hindering, a lot of these technologies from sort of gaining the momentum that they need.
All right.
Okay, Brenda, there are two questions on this edge to feed into that. I don't know if you're willing to pick them concurrently and then feed into the next segment of your questions.
Yes, of
Would that
course.
be
And
okay?
I also want Julio to comment a little bit on what he said, because I think it's very critical for these small, medium-sized enterprises to understand what is needed. And there was that element about failure. Briefly, just talk to us a little bit about why some of them fail before they even start operations.
Well, there's, I think everyone will be familiar with the failure rates of companies in their first 5 years. I think the accepted number is about 80% of companies who fail in the first 5. Some numbers from the US that might or might not be a reference for other parts of the world, but only 0.05% of companies arrive at a stage of raising funds from venture capital. And only 0.01% of the 0.05% actually become unicorns or billion-dollar companies. So there's a lot of failure in starting a business, right? I mean, every entrepreneur will understand that, and every investor will understand that. The venture capital model, it's almost like betting, if you will. I hope there's no VCs here, I'm sorry. But they will make, for instance, 10 investments, and they know for a fact that out of these 10 investors, 5 or 6 are going to fail, are going to fold. And we can go on the reasons why a company folds. Maybe the technology is not appropriate. Maybe there's no market fit. Maybe there's issues with the funding. Maybe there's issues with macroeconomic crisis, like the ones that we're going through today, and we're going to see a lot of companies failing. We are seeing already. So it's why a company fail. There are many, many reasons. I believe that in the technology space, what we see and what Steph mentioned is solving a problem where the problem really doesn't exist, right? And that I think is something that we see quite a lot in tech. You create a problem in your head and then you solve that problem with technology. I believe that that's what we see. A lot of decks on tech firms in early stage are not really solving a problem. I guess everybody in technology will tell you that your product needs to be solving someone else's problem, and you have to find a way ultimately to monetize that. And I think maybe that's one, at least my perspective on the failures of the tech companies.
Laurette?
Thank you very much. My question is to Stefano. My name is Tendai Mtana. I'm the County Executive Committee member from Mombasa County. And I'd just like you to speak a little bit on the interrelation between the agrovet and what is emerging now as the warehouse receipting infrastructure. Because I know that as county governments over the last 1 year, we've approved a number of regulatory mechanisms, particularly around warehouse receipting, given the need for a differentiation between commodity value and market value. What I mean by that is a lot of the farmers have produce, particularly at post-harvest, that needs a slow release into the market for them to be able to get better pricing. Earlier on this morning, we spoke about financial interventions, and one of the things that was spoken about is collateral. Now, when I hear a little bit about iProcure, there seems to be a link and an opportunity. I don't know how tenuous it is as to whether the system you're running could also align with the warehouse to enable the facilitation of collateral for SMEs, given the sophistication that you have.
Yeah, thank you for that. I personally don't know a lot about the offtake side. So on the produce side, I don't really have much expertise. In terms of how applicable our tech is, it could be applied. But this is obviously works against putting our interest front and center. I do think the biggest problem that we need to solve in agriculture, above affordable inputs, above access to credit for inputs, is really providing stable markets, right? And that slow release you were talking about is part and parcel of that, right? So there are ways to sort of reverse engineer what we've done, or at least apply it in sort of a front to back, if you will, right? So I'll give an example. In our life cycle, we didn't just land on the current business model. I mentioned earlier we've been through several iterations, right? One of those iterations involved working with farmer cooperatives, and mainly dairy cooperatives. What we used to do there was not just provide input supply software, so software that sort of facilitates the steady supply of inputs to the member farmers, but also a grading system that would allow us to grade the quality of milk, keep track of the quantity collected, etc., etc. Now, those systems are now really what we need in terms of ensuring that there is some sort of, how do I put it, that there's some sort of, so these systems used to facilitate credit, the processor that was collecting from that dairy cooperative, the data that these systems would render to the processor was what they used to lend to the farmer against, right? And they would even sort of lend for future supply of milk, not necessarily what was actually supplied already, right? Now, in terms of how that can be applied to grains, I don't want to oversimplify a problem that's clearly complex, but the first approach I would use would be to, and there are many systems like that, right? I mean, I know of a few competitors of ours who are now focusing on the off-taking side and the receipting systems. Those systems can clearly facilitate sort of access to market, but ultimately what needs to happen is local businesses, local feed millers need to prioritize purchasing of produce from grains in particular from local farmers before considering sort of imports, right? It's a bit of a fumbled answer, but given my limited knowledge on the offtake side, that's the best you'll get out of me.
Thank you, Stefano. We really appreciate your answer and the personal view in terms of what you make of it. And even as we wind up, I know time is up. Julian, you're still with us. I'd like us to finish up by giving us some sentiments in relation to government policy, regulation. I know it is a critical sector that we touched on a bit, but if you can give us just a little answer, a firmed up answer in terms of where Kenya is in terms of regulation and what needs to be done, very briefly.
I think a couple of things. One of the things we haven't talked about on this panel, but it does link back to the SME technologies. Food is a much bigger contributor to emissions. The greenhouse gas emissions and the whole climate emergency that is given. There's already kind of recognised in most kind of literature. And therefore the importance of having cooling to reduce food loss is really important. One of the big things the government is working on at the moment is the national cooling strategy. I'd love to see that kind of advance more quickly and really advance with a view to having high quality technology. Because again, cooling is very specific stuff, but cooling can be done cheaply and badly, and you get rubbish results. Or you can get something with high value over a long period of time, and that will make a big difference. And that big difference is both to the underlying economics harm by reducing loss rates, right the way through to the amount of emissions that take place, through to how it's managed. Generally, there's a couple of other things that generally we've got to increase the standard of cooling across agriculture is what we're seeing there. Of course, I would say that. The reason I think we need to say that though is a couple of things. There is going to be the increasing pressure, particularly in the export world, around carbon. That is, on top of that, you then have the recent the challenges that have happened with air freight, and in terms of that, it's gone up in price, there's less of it, combined then with the challenges that we've spoken about in terms of the cost of the fertilizer. So that really needs for the horticulture sector to really kind of make much, get some margin back in business, more margin back in business. You've got to move and shift towards sea trading. If you want to do sea trading, you need to have good regulation. And one of the things that I kind of, whatever the answer is, you just want consistency in business. So that you can plan around it, which is kind of something Stefano said earlier. as well. Affecting giving people consistency in work and plan. But I do see a big future whereby exports will start to move through sea freight. To do sea freight, you need to have a really good crew of on-farm crewing to make sure you're not being good quality. To do that, we also then need support around the financing. There's an interwoven of those things, many different kind of policies. I think the good one is going to be towards getting the national food strategy. One of the challenges we inevitably face on crew as well is getting technical about the type of refrigerants we use. We, the Kenya stuff and beyond, we are using refrigerants which are banned in We need to find a way of changing the market so that we can use lower polluting and more sustainable refrigerants across the market. That's a very hard thing to do and to have change. This technology that's 10 plus years old, it will be the latest in that. But that is the pressure that will come inevitably with the broader global pressure to reduce emissions.
All right.
I hope that's pretty ground answer. I hope that does give you a bit of an indication. Get the national food strategy out, give people consistency is probably the summary parts.
Thank you, Julian. Mitch, less carbon emissions, of course, equals to smart economics. And even as we finish, Stefano, perhaps I can start with you so that we can finish with Julio. Stefano, is the government doing enough in terms of introducing policies that are fostering information technology in transformative produce? There's a chuckle. Briefly.
No, it's a tricky question to answer. But not by requiring sort of, we have some of the best developers in the world here, which is why I don't understand why people outsource their engineering to places like Lithuania or Eastern Europe. I mean, we have really good engineers here. I work with some of them, but making it more difficult for, provided I'm an engineer, right? And if you're building a bridge, or you're building medical hardware, or even medical software, then you do need the requisite sort of qualifications, right? Because people's lives are at risk, you need to ensure that individual is well and formally trained in what they're doing, right? But when it comes to requiring, and unfortunately it's not, I don't think it's any longer in play, but when it comes to sort of requiring software developers to have certain formal qualifications to be seen, to be allowed to develop software, then it starts to kind of hinder sort of the creative spirit that we have, right? And it also hinders innovation, right? I am self-taught, not by any means good at software development. You can talk to my co-founders, they'll tell you that. But I enjoy it. And I don't think I should have to have a software development degree in order to develop software. So those kind of policies, I think, are a little bit unnecessary. But having said that, I think it is generally a very good climate for innovation. But that's just because you asked me to point something out, right? Yeah.
Julio, okay, now, very quickly and very brief. Is Kenya, compared to other developed markets, Kenya is a frontier market, depending on how you're looking at it. It's a frontier market and a developing country. Are we there yet? Are we heading there? Is the government doing enough to ensure that we compete with markets such as South Africa, Nigeria, and even Ghana, because Ghana is coming up really strong in terms of financial solutions?
I think Kenya is on the forefront on a number of areas. I believe that in terms of attracting investment in sub-Saharan Africa, Kenya is number 2 or 3 this year and historically. I think the government and the regulator authorities have done a good job in making Kenya a destination for investment. I think both for early stage companies and also large corporates. So I think lots of work to be done, but if you look at the hard facts, Kenya today is on the forefront of the venture capital, and I dare to say even private equity markets in sub-Saharan Africa. So, B+.
We'll get to the A. Okay, thank you so much. In such an A-star panel, we had Julian Mitch, Chief Executive Officer of Inspira Farms Limited. Of course, he is commercially minded business executive who has successfully shaped, led, and developed organizations in fintech, off-grid energy, and the British military in Europe, Central Asia, and East Africa. He holds a Master of Science in Defense Geospatial Information from Cranfield University. And Stefano Cacoforo, Chief Executive Officer of iProcure Limited. He, of course, chose to pursue a career in systems engineering, very passionate about systems engineering, and began his career by working for a branch of Philips Engineering as a systems engineer. He has worked extensively overseeing large development projects in Cameroon and Haiti. Of course, this is post the earthquake. And he holds a Bachelor in Engineering, Mechanical Engineering from Oxford Brookes University. And of course, finally, we had Julio de Souza, Vice President for Stratlink Advisory Group. He is a financial advisor, management consultant, and a serial entrepreneur with 14 years of experience across multiple industries. Of course, he was selected as an Acumen Fund East Africa Fellow inaugural class of 2011. He is also a mentor of entrepreneurs at Unreasonable Institute, Growth Hub, and MLab. And I've been your host, Brenda Kirubo. Thank you so much for staying tuned in this specific session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brenda, Stefano, Julian. And Stefano's the walk of stage. That was a session centered on fostering information technology-enabled transformative products. So as we transition off that particular segment, allow me to also just cue in Roger Bird. Roger Bird is the USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism Chief of Party, and Roger is going to, or rather take us just through the next 5-10 minutes to bring unto us our chief guest and also the representative from USAID. Roger, the platform is yours, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hello, good afternoon. And let's hear some noise of how much you've been enjoying the conversation so far. Okay, great, thank you. I'm glad everybody's still awake. It's my great pleasure to be able to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Benson Kimethi. Benson is the manager of USAID's Kenyan Investment Mechanism at the USAID Kenya East Africa Mission. As I mentioned before, if you want to go far, you need to go together. And Benson, I really want to recognize your tireless commitment to not only the development, the economic development in Kenya, but in particularly your commitment to the Kenyan Investment Mechanism team. We so appreciate the dialogue and interaction with you and all of your colleagues at the mission. It's what helps us be as good as we can be. Benson is also the team leader over USAID's activities that catalyze economic growth activities and opportunities, especially for young men and women. With that, I'd like to introduce Benson Kimethi.
That's correct. Thank you. So, once more, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Benson Kimethi, coming out of USAID, sitting at the US Embassy, and managing the Kenya Investment Mechanism. Roger has given me a very simple activity here. Is one to just read some few 10 remarks. And So, yeah, allow me to proceed once more. Thank you to you, Honorable David Osiani, Chief Administrative Secretary at the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Development, for joining this learning session event. Private sector partners and colleagues, all protocols observed. Good afternoon once more. Good afternoon. Allow me again to share these written remarks that the United States government, through USAID, partners with government of Kenya, the private sector, and the Kenya people to advance economic prosperity. USAID's vision is that every Kenyan can benefit from Kenya's development, grow their business, feed their family, and contribute to Kenya's future. To do this, USAID works with Kenyan and US private organizations to implement development projects jointly designed with Kenyans. These organizations partner directly with Kenyan private sector, communities, county, and national governments to promote a level playing field so that business and people can thrive. This event is one of the ways USAID mission is spearheading Kenya-led, Kenya-owned, and also Kenya-managed solutions to Kenya issues. Again, I will point out that this learning event will help us all to reflect on what is working, and I've seen a lot of that happening, what is not working, and together find lasting and sustainable solutions to challenges facing the business sector. Over the past 5 years, these collective efforts have significantly improved the economic outlook for Kenya. Some highlights of the results of these efforts, I will mention a few, have enabled nearly 30,000 small and medium enterprises, we call them SMEs, Kenyan agri-businesses access credit. Secondly, reduce the time and cost of doing business, and I'm sure you can attest to this in Kenya, including a reduction in cross-border transport wait times from 6 days to 6 hours. Supported over 1 million Kenyans access electricity. Supported the Kenyan private sector to export over $600 million through the African Growth and Opportunity Act, popularly known as AGOA, making US the second largest export market for Kenya. We've leveraged $180 million in private sector investment for improved water and sanitation. We are focused on directing more attention going forward and personnel and investment towards building capacity of public and private local actors and organizations. Again, USAID recognizes that private sector actors and institutions are integral to Kenya's economic landscape and vital players in facilitating investment, inclusive employment, broad-based economic growth, and quality of services. USAID will continue to prioritize private sector partnerships while still simultaneously maintaining youth and women as entry points to relevant interventions. Many Kenyan firms, particularly small and medium enterprises, do not have access to finance to grow their businesses. USAID is working closely with the Kenyan government and Kenyan and US private sector to encourage greater investments in Kenyan firms and encourage the banking sector, and we have seen quite a number here, to expand services to underserved Kenyans, with particular focus on agribusiness sector, agricultural sector. We identify opportunities and support banks and other financial institutions in designing products with that targeting these underserved borrowers. In addition, we provide support to foreign direct investment that support inclusive growth, job creation, productivity, enhancement for Kenyan economy. To date, the Kenya Investment Mechanism, the USAID through the Kenya Investment Mechanism, has supported over 400 small and medium enterprises to access over 485 million US dollars in finance and investments. This has led to job creation and improved livelihoods for Kenyans. Thank you all for being partners of USAID, and USAID looks forward to working closely with you as stakeholders to advance Kenya's sustainable economic growth. It is now my honor to welcome our chief guest, Honorable David Osiani, Chief Administrative Secretary at the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, to give his remarks and officially open this learning event. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Some are just staring at me. I don't know whether it is my sweater or my dark skin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here this afternoon. Allow me foremost to appreciate the USAID team, my brother Kimiti and Roger, the whole team, various stakeholders here present, delegates in the room and online. I want to appreciate the USAID for the collaboration they've had with the government of Kenya, working towards our shared prosperity. Shared prosperity sometimes is just cliche, looking good on papers and policy. But for the USAID, I think this, especially through the Kenya investment mechanism, has been demonstrated truly. I saw that the whole of this learning session or conference is anchored on two major things: access and impact. Shared prosperity. Access to markets. Shared prosperity. Access to technology and innovation. Shared prosperity. But most importantly, access to finances and affordable credit. Shared prosperity. The USAID has been part of our journey as a nation since 1963. They have sought shared prosperity in issues of defense, in issues of democratic governance, in environmental issues, in economic, socio-economic issues. This afternoon, I am here to celebrate those of you who have been beneficiaries of this, of the Kenya investment mechanism. I am here to congratulate USAID for being a great catalyst for attracting investment, for attracting funding to support our multi-sectoral investors. Anyone who knows me knows that my heart breathes the micro, small, and medium enterprises. I appreciate the large corporates, and I wish you well, and we are working towards ensuring that you grow even larger. But I am a champion of moving the nano entrepreneur to the micro space and pushing the micro entrepreneur to the small space and the small into medium, and eventually the medium into the large corporate. I know I have a great speech written for me, but there are moments like this when I think, as is custom with me, I forfeit the speech so that I speak from the heart based on what I am seeing, what I am witnessing. I appreciate the successes that this program has achieved. That out of the commitment of $35 million, you've been able to spar 485 million USD into the economy, assisting, alleviating, supporting, anchoring businesses in this country. A couple of weeks back, I visited Belgium, and I met the CEO of the BioInvest, which is a Belgian development corporation, investment corporation that funds businesses or attempts to create impact in African countries. And I asked him, sir, how much have you considered the Kenyan market? So first, have we considered the Kenyan market? He said, yeah, we have given resources to Kenyan commercial banks to be able to support SMEs, especially to be able to impact on women. And I asked, okay, what's the interest rate? He says, well, we lend to them at about 3 or 4%. I said, okay. Then I asked the big question, have you been keen to follow through to ensure that your intended impact is met, your objective for impact is met in Kenya, and that the commercial banks further lend that money onwards to our micro, small, and medium enterprises for just about the same amount, or if they're to charge administrative costs, then receive it for 4% and lend it onwards at no more than 7%. And I did not receive any response. Because the custom has been, and I'm sorry to commercial banks, I say this at the risk of being hanged, I think it is noble that when we receive funding to support businesses given to us at those decent rates, our onward lending should also demonstrate a desire for impact. And this is why this particular program quite excites me. I was having discussions with Kimethi, and he says, you know, some of our venture capitalists and, our funders just want impact. And once you show impact, they're not big about profit. So 8%, 5%, 6%. I am really hoping that all our funders coming into the country for impact really come to support our businesses to grow. Then we will comfortably and confidently speak shared prosperity. Then we will have employed many more Kenyans and our women will be dignified. Then our manufacturing sector will bulge. Our agri sector will grow. Africa accounts for upwards of 40% of the world's arable land. And to focus on agriculture is inspiring for me. It is important as Kenya makes its contribution to the African dream of reviving and finding its capability within the agri-space and feeding the world. I know that we are having wonderful conversations and negotiations, my ministry, with the United States. Our trade negotiations are ongoing. And each time we have those conversations, it demonstrates the mutuality that we have towards our shared prosperity, even when we are trying to ensure that our interests are best catered for. I have sat through the session. And as I walked in, I listened as we spoke about transforming financial markets for shared prosperity. And later on, I heard questions asked about whether Kenya has created an environment in which businesses can thrive, especially financial innovation. And was she Kwamboka, the host? You ask that, but you know, what people don't know is that in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index, Kenya is the third in Africa, only after Mauritius and Rwanda. I was waiting for a clap from the questionnaire. Moving from 118 in 2013 when President Kenyatta became president, we are 56th globally. Mauritius 13th and Rwanda 38th. We are the country you come to when you want to prosper. As we say, for you to do business in the world, Africa is a must, but Kenya is almost a requirement. I am very grateful for the opportunity that our businesses and our delegates here present and the businesses that you targeted in the agri-space have gotten to have a front row seat in acquiring business advisory services. And I appreciate the providers of those consulting services. For those of us who are Christians, we subscribe to the Bible as the ultimate doctrine. That Bible I believe in says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." The quality consulting services have been a gap for our business people to get to understand what is here for you. How do you take advantage? How do you maximize on your potential as a business to grow, to thrive? How do you expand beyond your location so that if you set up a business in Kitale, you don't think of yourself as being able to only tap into the Kitale market and its environs, but understand that your location is just a place from which you access the entire world. The Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, because here we have various business people who don't understand sometimes, and I know that we continuously work to inform. We, for example, have the Kenya Industrial Estates to give business people dignified working spaces connected to electricity and water at affordable rates, so that if you have a little bit of capital to start your business, you don't start thinking of how you are going to build your factory. You have a place to start from which you can launch and grow. A lot of business persons, even in the agri-space, do not understand that we have the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, which is mandated to inform you about opportunities for export for whatever product you're doing. Not too long ago, while visiting Portugal, I told Kenyans that I bought a pineapple for 20 euros, which is 2,500 shillings. And it was a very painful thing. But then beyond that, I went to have conversations about the possibility of accessing that market. And I said, wow, there's so much to do. America has been a great partner under the AGOA framework for Kenya. The opportunities for business between our two countries and between the African continent and the United States is massive. Now, as the East African quote-unquote nation that we are, with a population almost the size of the United States, I look forward to us exploring opportunities that will give vantage to our business people, even as we take care of the interests of the American people. Then we will be speaking shared prosperity. Shared prosperity is not shared until it benefits both sides almost equally. And yet, you know, my Bible still, sorry for those who may not be Christian, and I respect all faiths, said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so to America, that much is given, much is expected in our journey towards shared prosperity. I am elated at your journey towards unlocking capital for our women entrepreneurs. I am excited about financial development, innovation, and uptake by our businesses, because until and unless our businesses in country appreciate the place of innovation, then we will be doing the same things the same ways and expecting different results. And thank you for demonstrating that the expectation of you has not failed. We are grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, I hope that the learnings we get from this place will not be in vain. That we will sit and go through what our real experiences are. What we say here in Kenya, kwa ground, kukoaje. And when we get the experiences from the ground, they will inform how this program moves forward to edify the lives of very many Kenyans, to add value to those who are working towards our prosperity, which is USAID, and to ensure that indeed access and impact is not just words we read, but words we relate with, words we know, words we feel. The impact will then be written on all these faces, and I know that next year, as we head towards powering an approximate 520 million US dollars, I will be back on this platform, inshallah, to celebrate the great success of Kenyan businesses. Back to my Bible. The Bible has 8 Beatitudes. I will add the 9th. I pray that Allah will forgive me. The 9th says, "Blessed is the speaker who speaketh short, for he shall be invited to speak again." And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I now officially declare this learning session open. Thank you.
All right, that was a wonderful one. Could we just rise up and give David Osenya a round of applause for his powerful nuggets as we just open up the Kim Learning event here for. Let's do it some energy, the way he's done it with energy, guys. Man, eish. All right, and probably before I give the last remarks to just take us through to lunch, just in the same sequence of us standing, George, if you could allow me, Roger, David, and Mr. Benson, probably could you just go on stage for one picture bit, official picture bit from our audience, then we'll embark. Yeah, let's just do that. One last pics. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David, Benson, and Roger for that. Much appreciated. We've just officially opened up our Kim Learning event here for themed Access and Impact Transforming Financial Markets for Shared Prosperity. That was a great one. 2 panels done and dusted this particular morning. One centered on financial innovations, and the other one was on information technology products. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great, fantastic start for the Kim Learning event year 4, and we're looking for more and more within the next afternoon, right? And probably tomorrow. Allow me to just do a quick debrief in terms of what to expect after this. We're going to be having lunch on second floor. So as you leave the door, that's the door behind, please ensure you have a meal card from one of our beautiful ashes. And we are on 13:34 hours. As you see, the next session needs to start at exactly 2:30 p.m. So for us to enjoy the session around women economic empowerment, we need to keep time. And for us to ensure we keep time, in as much as you do your networking lunch, please kind of try and do it quick so that we can be able to have a fruitful episode in the afternoon. And also remember, this particular conversation is being plugged in from the respective digital platform that is YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to keep on sharing the conversation online, again, what's the hashtag? Could any person from the audience recap for me what the hashtag is? Anyone? If you've been following? Anyone? Can somebody mention what the hashtag is? No one is? Any hand up? Okay, let me pick it up. The hashtag is USAID Kim Learning Event, and the other hashtag is to invest in Kenya. Talk to us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being present here today. Thank you so much for engaging us within the last 4 hours of the day. I look forward to seeing you in the afternoon segment. Enjoy yourself, network, talk more, pick more business cards, and let's engage more. Thank you. Stay blessed and have. What ends the what? I said we get back at exactly 2:20 p.m. for us to be on set for the 2:30 p.m. Women Economic Empowerment segment. Thank you. All right.